We're back down the history, social studies. Um, we'll think of a name for it. I don't know. Uh, you think of something, you tell me what you think we should call this place. Uh, Pretty bland right now. Not a lot going on. A lot of white. We'll get some pictures of something hung up sometime later on to make it a little more homey. Right now we're pretty bland, pretty white. But we're going to continue on talking about our explorers that we've been talking about pretty much for the past 2 weeks. We're going to get away from Spain, though. Spain's going to still be in the picture with a lot of what we're talking about today, but we're going to be moving away from Spain into the other countries. Hopefully, we're not too loud volume-wise. I'm going to we're a little bit soft. We hopefully so, so let's get rolling here. So we're going to get started. We're talking about this thing. It's called the Protestant Reformation. Okay, the Protestant Reformation has to do with religion, Christianity in particular. Um, at the time of Columbus, or Columbus, and even about 20 years after Columbus, the only Christian church around was the Catholic Church. That was the church, capital T-H-E, the church in all the world when it came to Christianity. So if you were a member of the Christian church, you were part of the Catholic. Okay, that all changed about 19 or not 19, 15, 17-ish. The Catholic Church split. Okay, this is called the Protestant. You have your Protestant churches, and you have the Catholic Church. Both are Christian. Okay, both are Christian, just different denominations. So the Catholic Church, every other Christian church that is not Catholic is considered Protestant. So your Lutheran, Nationals, um, Baptist, all those are considered churches. Catholic Protestant or Catholic, still both, but little differences kind of split them up. So this took place in 1517, around that time. There were issues, and the main man with the issues was a guy by the name of Martin Luther. Right? Not Martin Luther King Jr., the guy you're thinking about with civil rights and helping African Americans gain more equality. No, this is Martin Luther, the German priest. All right, and here's what my man looked like right there. All right, so the Catholic Church. He had issues with the Catholic Church. He thought the church was doing things wrong, and that in this picture you can see him, he's hammering up what they called the 95 theses or 95 complaints that he had with the church. Okay, so there are 95 things that he felt could have been done differently, could have been done better to make the church better. Okay, so Martin Luther took it upon himself. He hammered these complaints up on the wall and basically was telling the church, these are things that I think you need to change. Being the Pope and being probably the most powerful person, he didn't like being told that his church has something wrong with it. So instead of listening to Martin Luther and making changes to the church, he kicked him out. Excommunication is what they call that. So he was kicked out of the Catholic Church, kicked out of the church in general. Wasn't a guy that was going to sit back and dwell on something bad. He wasn't going to be like, oh, shucks, I got kicked out of the church. What am I going to do now? He just started his own church, started his own type of Christianity. The very first Protestant churches were considered quote unquote Lutheran churches after Martin Luther. So he basically took the Catholic Church and its beliefs, made those 95 changes that he had hammered up on the door, and created Protestantism or Protestant Christianity. Okay, this is still around today. Right? You have Catholic Church, you have Protestant churches. Basically, both believing the same general things, but there's little things that separate them. So this might not seem like a big deal right now, but it becomes a huge deal in regards to the countries around the world during this time, during the age of exploration. The role that it's going to play in saw that he'd be a part of the kingdom. Right? That meant the Pope had more power than a king. Okay, king or queen. So now they're starting to think to listen to be part of these church or give up to the Pope. And what ruled by kings drift away. There are still a lot that stayed with the church, stayed loyal to the Pope, as he was saying, and all that stuff. But there are a lot of churches that said, I don't know that. I want more power. I want to keep on. I don't want to have to give it to the Pope or to the church. So we're going to start our own church, or these new Protestant churches. We're no longer on our own. So the those were still considered Italy, considered the make any change. Fine with that. Other countries, you see parts of France, England, Scotland, Switzerland in there, Poland, Hungary, out in the purple. They started to drift away and break up with the Catholic Church. So you can kind of see most of Europe still Catholic. Parts there, they're south, out in the Middle East, they're Muslim countries. But you can still see the Catholic Church still had a big hold on these countries. All right. So this break, though, caused some issues. Was the biggest deal, and that was with England. All right, my man King Henry VIII right here, looking very, very royal, fed. He's not going hungry. He was the man that really caused a rift between the rest of the Catholic countries, Spain in particular. So King Henry, this is his deal. He was married several times throughout his life. If you're familiar with the Catholic Church, then you know that is a big no-no. All right, Catholic Church doesn't believe in divorce, doesn't grant divorces when they happen. So even today, Catholic Church, they don't touch divorces. To them, they don't exist. Once you're married, you're married for life in the eyes of the Catholic Church. So King Henry VIII was married originally to a woman named Catherine. Things went sour between he and Catherine, to have his marriage annulled, basically meaning that it was wiped out. It didn't exist. Not necessarily a divorce, but it's just that his marriage wasn't on the books anymore. So he was able to go and marry somebody else. He went to the Pope and said, "Hey, Pope, can you help me out? Annul my marriage, make me single again so I can go marry somebody else." Pope thought about it. He came back and said, "No, not. You are stuck with Catherine. She's your wife. I'm not going to grant you your annulment. You're not going to be able to marry somebody new." All right. So Henry looked over his options. Didn't want to be married to Catherine. Liked what the Pope was saying about it. Saw that these new Protestant churches were springing up, and decided he was going to make his own church. All right. So he split with the Catholic Church. Said, "See you later, Pope. I'm out of here," and made his own church. Called it church. Most of the stuff that they believed in was still based on the Catholic Church's teachings, but just a different name. So now under the Catholic, King Henry was in charge of. He got his divorce. He could marry somebody else, and he ended up doing that several times in his life. So all because King Henry won it a divorce or wanted to get his marriage annulled. He broke up with the Catholic Church, formed the Church of England, or the Anglican Church is what it's known as, to get that divorce. So that's what he wanted, was out of his marriage, and he ended up getting out by forming his own church, forming his own religion, basically, his own type of Christianity. And this would end up causing some issues later on, which we're going to talk about. So King Henry VIII, VIII, which is Roman numeral for 8, that those that it was because of him that we get these issues later on we're talking about. So back to Spain. All right, we all know Christopher Columbus sailed for Spain. He might not have discovered America, but we've talked about how he kicked open the door for the rest of the Europeans to come over. The majority of those Europeans, like you guys read about and like we talked about this week, were Spanish. The Cortezes, the Pizarros, the Ponce de Leons, all of those guys were Spanish explorers that, because of Columbus and what he brought back from America, they went over and they knew what they were looking for, and they had an idea of where they were looking and where to look. That they went over and they took advantage of it. Took over the Inca and Aztec empires, took over a lot of other lands, and they were able to become the most powerful country in the world, the richest and the most powerful. And it was because Columbus opened the door to make that possible. So Spain had a head start. Other countries tried to jump in there too, and they were able to, but the little already was an advantage of what they knew about. So as Spain's power grew, other countries started to become jealous. They wanted what Spain had. They wanted the gold, they wanted the land, they wanted their empire to grow, they wanted to be number one. When someone's number one, most people below that number one want that spot. So they're going to try to do whatever they can to take it. With this jealousy, led to countries distrusting each other, led to countries not trading with one another. All right, Spain's number one. Spain's getting all of these resources that they could then trade to countries, or they could keep themselves. And what they decided to do was they weren't going to trade. They felt that if they traded with other countries, it would make those countries closer to themselves power-wise. Okay, if you help out another country, it's might knock you down. So to keep their spot, they said, we're not trading. Right? If you want this stuff, go find it yourself. We're going to give it to you. So all the stuff that they brought over, they kept in their own countries. They didn't trade because they thought that was helping out those other countries below them. So it was on top to some rivalries being formed between countries in Europe. Other countries did. They sought trade routes for themselves to get gold, get more wealth. Most countries still wanted to go to Asia. That was the goal. Columbus's goal when he sailed across the Atlantic was to get to Asia. He thought he did it. Later on, people found out that he wasn't right. It was something different. So in a lot of there was still a not having to go around Africa, not having to go Silk Road and deal with the Muslim. So they were still trying to find a way to get the things that in Asia, the resources, the spices, gold, whatever it was that they wanted. So they sailed over, took Columbus's route a little. Were looking for a new way to get so to do. Spain wasn't helping them out. Other countries weren't going to help them out. If you wanted, if it's something at this time, you would help yourself out. So countries were funding these expeditions to try to go get those riches and so they could build a level. Because Spain was already. So you can see the Spanish and Portuguese land holdings. The map's not coming in. Super graves are what Spain controlled. the kind of greenish areas what Portugal controlled. Power-wise, you would say Spain was number one, Portugal was number two, maybe a little bit lower than number two, but they were the ones that were doing most of the exploring in the Americas during that time. And you can see all the routes that they were taking. All right, they're coming from their own country. They're going, they're sailing around Africa, going to India, so they already have their routes. Sailing around South Africa, going to Eurasia, so they have their routes planned out. They've done it. They're benefiting from these routes, trying to get their own routes, get their own sailors to make this work. And just like you want to stay number one, right? And Spain was very good at staying number one for a period of time because they had the best navy in the world. All right, best navy in the world, and they're going to use it to their advantage here. So Spain being a country and working with the Pope was trying to get the spaghetti England. For whatever reason, the Pope thought England was important. What they Henry VIII took him out of the Catholic Church, started his own church, and now the Pope wanted Spain to get. Spain was pretty much acting like the king's personal, or the Pope's personal army to try to get England to come back. Force. This wasn't by negotiation. This was go in there, basically take over, put a pro-Catholic king or queen in place, so then they come back and also didn't like England because England was doing things that Spain had some privateers, some pirates that were raiding Spanish ships when they were coming back with the gold and the resources from America, and taking them back to England. So Spain wanted to stop the pirates from taking their stuff, and England also helped Holland break away from the Catholic Church. Holland wanted to break away. The Pope said, nope, we're not. Helped Holland break away. So these are things that Spain didn't like. One, the pirates taking their stuff. The English helped Holland break away from the Catholic. The Pope, again, saying, Spain, you're going to be my personal army. Get on and England back in the fold. Spanish had the best navy in the world, named the Spanish Armada. Okay, 100 ships that were the meanest, baddest, toughest ships you're going to find. Okay, if you saw the Spanish Armada coming at you, you knew you were in trouble. All right, the Spanish Armada helped keep Spain in control. All right, it was able to kind of block off some of the ships that were trying to go over to America, trying to get different routes. Now the Spain to go to England and take out the Queen of England, put in a new monarch that was more pro. The Armada. If they were the Spanish Armada was going to go in there, whoop England, put in a Catholic monarch, and then England was going to be a Catholic country again. But just like sports and anything else, things don't always go like it should. England was a big underdog. Spain was the favorite here. So the Armada looking like this, rolling deep. All right, we got 130 ships all going towards the same location. England's not that big. These ships were going to cause trouble. They're going to cause some damage. And it didn't look like they're going to be stopped until the weather came into effect. All right, on the way up to England, the Armada got caught in a huge storm. I mean, one of the worst that people could remember, that the storm took out, I'm not going to say all their ships, but a lot were taken out. The other ones were weakened by the weather. So the English out, they sailed through a storm. We're going to go them before they get to our country. We'll meet them in the water and try to take them out. So the big Spanish were defeated. Spanish Armada. England Armada, they're going to have a hard time spot with some divine and weather system in Spain down. Because of that, the French elves were able to gain some power over the Armada from sailing over. So pretty much open seas, try to find some gold, find some new tricks, put up colonies, which we'll talk about. So because of that storm, the Spanish Armada. Without the Armada, Spain was of itself. So up ahead, and this is considered a major super. So it's over 400 years since Spain was considered to be a top power, and it was really all because of the Armada. So with the Armada gone and England now raising up and becoming one of the upper powers throughout, they send their own explorers over across the Atlantic. And it wasn't crossing the Atlantic to go find gold or take out native empires or even gain land to begin with. They're looking to find Asia. They knew that the Spanish had found southern routes or explored the southern parts of the Americas. So they're going to try something different. They sent a guy named John Cabot up north. All right, they said so south there's a waterway at the very bottom of South America, the Strait of Magellan, but you still got to sail down all the way to the entire continent to get there. So let's change it up. Let's go up north. Let's try to find something there that's a little bit easier ourselves. So John Cabot was sent to northern route. He went to Spain and Portugal first, and then we're not interested. We got our own thing going. We're going down in the south. This is at the time they were still the two leading powers in exploration, and they didn't think they needed John Cabot to go up north. So they said, "Nah, we're not going to fund it. We don't need it." England was in need of kickstart their exploration, and John Cabot was that guy that kind of jump-started what they were trying to do. So Cabot sailed over, landed in what's now Canada, what we would call that today. Explored a little bit area. Made a couple explorations, made a couple trips over to America, kind of in the same general area, the new area. Possibly traveled down to Massachusetts into what's now part of the United States. Really sure, because by down there, he disappeared. Back, so he made a few trips. We'll come back to England. He never disappeared. No one's really sure what happened to him. And you can see here on the map, it shows his explorations. The red route that he took shows you that he kind of gets down to North America. Whoops. There we go. Kind of gets down in North America, and then as he's going back, it just stops. So John Cabot disappears. comes back with some information from his earlier voyages. Um, and like I said, he does kind of jump the expert for the English as well as the French, but the English more importantly. But did not find that passageway, that northern route to Asia. But that didn't mean that England, France, countries were going to this that was going to be found up north, named the North Passage. Go find the Northwest Passage. It was northwest of England, and they're going to try to find that was going to make Asia. So if they could find the Northwest, then hopefully they're going to find it to get to aid of resource wise to keep them in power, or keep them rising up the ranks at least to becoming a world power. So French explorers that they basically were traveling through present-day Canada. All right, they didn't go into what's the United States today. They went into the Hudson River was found as well, and that's what through these rivers go through the Great Lakes to the Pacific. Find it. It wasn't that waterway, at least down where they were looking in the Canadian United States today. So French explorers traveled through Canada, and once they realized that there was no passageway they were going to find, they set up trading posts. Well, there's things here that we can use. There's things here that we can sell out to make us more wealthy. It might not be gold. It might we're you couldn't find it in Europe. So things like beaver. Beaver was huge, and you couldn't find beaver in Europe. The animal wasn't in Europe. So they find the beaver. They would trade with Native Americans. They would get those beaver pelts, bring them back, profit. Fur traders made a lot of money, and people that sold them over in Europe made a lot of money. So even though they didn't find the Northwest Passage, they were able to make a lot of money through trading furs. French were settlements. They the furs that they needed, going back to France and Iran. And we'll talk about missions. There. All right. Connects map here. Atlantic. Here's the Pacific in this area. New York. All right, you can see up here. It's full of ice chunks going through that. Let alone the boats that there'd be no waters. So during the 1600s, but now we know that there is a quote unquote Northwest Passage that if people wanted to, doesn't do us much good now to travel. But had these guys looking on the Northwest Passage, but just thought it was going to be very, very, very north, and like I said, almost impossible to get through due to the ice, the ocean. So even though they didn't then, there is such thing as a Northwest Passage today. Very much I guess I wouldn't use. So I believe